had another exciting day today. A lot of interesting facts and stuff that came out again today. We're going to talk about. It was supposed to be the first day of opening arguments, and we are putting that off. Opening arguments were not heard today, and that's going to be put off a whole week, as we'll talk about here in the next few minutes. The first thing the judge brought up as we got in there is that there was a issue that was brought up with one of the jurors, and this is juror number 29, which is now juror number 4. That's in line as they're seated. So juror number 4 now, but it was previously juror number 29 when we was going through jury selections. This juror was having some sort of financial hardship and also some medical issues that they discussed, and they were trying to see if they could keep this juror on this case or going to dismiss this juror. And we haven't even got started with the trial yet. We're already having still more issues with these potential jurors. This juror is going to be kept. For one reason, the trial has been put off another whole week. We won't start trial now, potentially, until next Tuesday, the 14th. We've got a lot of work ahead of us the next few days. Mr. Whipple is the first one who brought up the dismissal motions again today, and also detention. The dismissal on this evidence that has been discovered that has been hidden from the defense for the last 3.5 years. Ryan Bundy has brought up this multiple times in motions trying to get this camera and there's other evidence that's been missing, trying to figure out where it was, and if this camera that was surveilling the Bundy ranch, if it was recorded or it had audio, where's the tapes to it, if there's multiple cameras. The judge consented that she's seen something wrong here today. She says she doesn't buy it that the government had a camera up and did not record those that video. Why do they have just one up just so they can monitor it without really anybody monitoring it, just running all the time? It had to be recorded. She feels like there's something missing here, and she has ordered a new evidential hearing for tomorrow at 1 o'clock. She's given the government the rest of today and tomorrow to bring in new witnesses about this. Who knows more information on this camera that was set up surveilling the Bundy ranch and surveilling the flagpole area, the staging area? We want to know where that evidence is. Why is the government trying to hide it? Why do not they want to release it to the defendants? And she said herself, Mr. Myers said, well, we're not trying to hide this, Your Honor. We don't know. We know there one existed. We're admitting it exists, but that's all we know. It hasn't been even given to me, he said. And he said, there's no reason why we wouldn't want it. If there's a video out there, we would want it as evidence too against these. She said, well, that's not always true, Mr. Myrie. Evidence disappears because it isn't in the benefit of the defendants. And I want to know where it's at and why it hasn't been produced up until now. So the judge has been very favorable today for the defendants. I think today and last week was some of the first days I've seen her actually show somewhat of concern that something is wrong here, that there has been evidence hidden, evidence destroyed. And she brought that up several times today about destroyed evidence. She wants to be for sure that it was either intentional or misleading, or why this evidence hasn't been produced and where it's at. On the detention hearing, it was brought up again by Mr. Whipple. The trial's been put off again. Why are these men still being detained? And Ryan Bundy brought the same motion back up. So she's going to have a detention hearing on Thursday morning at 8:30 in the morning. She's discussing halfway houses for these guys, or possibly going home to their families during this trial. Which ones would qualify, which defendants were not. One of the questions was with Ryan Payne. The government brought up an issue that he had pled guilty in Oregon, and Mr. Myrie felt that possibly he's being still held on Oregon and that got discussed momentarily that Ryan Payne hasn't even been sentenced in Oregon yet. So Oregon has no hold on him. There's just Nevada. So it's a possibility that he could even get released. And Judge Gloria Navarro said, well, he has been no problem here for the court. He's been no problem for the jail that she's understood, and that she didn't see a reason why, but she wanted these motions to be heard, and why they should be released on pretrial release or still detained even longer. So we've got some interesting stuff this week. We got short court hearings this week coming up. The rest of the court week has been pretty much canceled except for these motions being heard. So we have court tomorrow on Wednesday at 1 o'clock for the evidential hearing. Then on Thursday morning, we have detention hearing again at 8:30 in the morning. There's a possibility that some of these guys could get to go home for the remainder of this trial while they're fighting for it.
How did they look? How did the brothers look in there in court today,
well,
John?
That's a good question. Ryan Bundy was dressed in a suit today. He was clean shaven, looked like a real short haircut, looked really good and clean. Ryan Payne had a good haircut today, had shaved off his beard just with just a shadow of a day or two growth beard. Looked really good, dressed in a blue plaid shirt and slack pants. Cliven Bundy and Ammon Bundy were both still dressed in their jail scrubs, the orange jumpsuits. Ammon Bundy still doesn't look like he's had a shave yet at all. I'm wanting to find out more details on that, whether he's had a chance to get a shower. We understanding they might have, but we don't know. Someone said that Ryan Bundy had got a shower today and was able to get a shower, but he's still in holding. They still haven't booked those two. Ammon Bundy and Ryan Bundy, both, the way I understand it, are still in booking over at Henderson. They have not been processed and booked due to these strip searches, excessive strip searches that they've been having to go through for the last year and a half, almost 2 years here. And Ryan brought that up today, Ryan Bundy again, that he's not being treated fairly. He is presumed guilty. He's not been presumed innocent. He said, put Mr. Myrie in a jail cell right next to mine, where we're on equal playing grounds. Mr. Myrie, if he was sitting in jail with what I had to work with, he wouldn't be where he's at either right now. I need to be out to be able to fight my case properly here, Your Honor, is what he said. And so this is all being looked at. Is some good points being made. Our next court date after Thursday, after the detention hearing, will be Monday morning for these renewed motions to hear that. And then the jurors, if the case is to continue, the jurors will be back this following Tuesday, the 14th at 8:30 a.m. So that's the next time the jurors will be back. Other than that, we need a lot of prayers down here that this case is dismissed upon this hidden evidence that the government has hidden for the last 3.5, 4 years from the defense, and has pretended it wasn't there until just today. Mr. Myrie started admitting, well, we're admitting now it exists, but they have not admitted that for the last 2 years it exists. And these defendants have requested this information over and over again, and they've mocked them, made fun of them, as Ryan Bundy said, belittled me, telling me that it didn't exist, that I was making this kind of stuff up. And so it's big news. It's good things happening. We see God at work down here, and we know that He's in control Himself, and that we're not, and we're giving Him all the glory for all this. And we just pray that this case does get dismissed and these guys do get to go home, and that's what we're asking for. So we're going to have some short live streams coming up tomorrow on what happens tomorrow. We'll also have again on Thursday for this detention hearing if these guys get out. But other than that, we'll be back in court again next Tuesday if the case continues. We're going to let Brandon blow his shofar here again. We did have a packed courtroom today. People from all over, supporters. Both sides of the aisle was jam-packed. We didn't really have much room for anybody else. We We'd like to thank everyone for coming out here and support. The guys notice everybody in there, and they appreciate all the support, and it really keeps their spirits up. And again, thank you. We'll see you this next time. God bless, and keep praying for us.
Hi, this is Brian Hyde, and I'm checking in from Las Vegas. Very interesting morning in the courtroom today. I'm going to give you a brief recap, but trust me, this was a pretty unexpected day. The trial was supposed to begin this morning, but actually it's now been pushed back to next Tuesday, the 14th, at 8:30 in the morning, and this is the reason why. First of all, the defendants were in the courtroom. I just want to report Ammon and Cliven both were wearing their jail scrubs. Ryan Payne and Ryan Bundy both were wearing suits. And I know there were some people questioning, why is that? Is there a message being sent? If there is, I don't know what it is. But last Friday, we talked about how there was some evidence that had come forward, or there was some questions about government handling of evidence. Specifically, it was brought up that video camera feeding live video and monitored by the FBI, among others, had been set up overlooking the Bundy family home. This was back in April of 2014. The questions that have arisen from the prosecution's either failure to provide that material or unwillingness to provide that material spilled over into court today. And before the jury could be brought in and opening statements could begin, the judge heard a couple of different motions by defense attorneys, and there were some huge concerns. There were some very serious concerns about, well, what other evidence hasn't made it to the defense? I mean, this is important. They need this information if they're going to properly defend themselves. So I'm going to read a couple of my notes here. The U.S. Attorney, Stephen Myrie, insisted the video camera was set up and taken down in less than a day. He downplayed it. This was no big deal. But the FBI agent who testified last Friday, and the judge went right back to the transcript and looked at this, the agent testified it was taken down after 4 days, possibly knocked over, possibly rendered inoperable. But the bottom line is, what Myrie was saying did not jive with the official court record. Surveillance was being done on a daily basis according to the operational plan. Ryan had motioned to compel discovery on this clear back in September, and he pointed out to the court today, when I made that motion, I was mocked for doing so. And then Morgan Philpott pointed out that there were actually multiple cameras, and wanted to get to the bottom of who was in charge of those cameras, who would have that video footage. And even the judge agreed it doesn't make sense that these cameras would be set up and would be monitoring traffic or people or conversations or whatever it was they were doing if somebody wasn't taking notes or recording that. It just doesn't make sense. And so finding out who was in charge of that camera, finding out what, if any, evidence may exist, whether it be exculpatory, could actually shed light on the innocence of the defendants, or inculpatory, or could incriminate them. Either way, the judge was having huge reservations. You could see the wheels turning in her head as she was thinking, oh, what do I do with this? And finally she said, we're going to have to continue this trial and get this resolved first and foremost. It was big. You could see the frustration on Stephen Myrie on his face. Time and again he rose up. I don't even know why we're talking about this. This doesn't really impact, the case. But the judge said otherwise, and you could see his frustration. You could see the judge going, "Ooh, this is a game changer." But the most telling thing, this was the part that I thought was most interesting of all. Last week, the courtroom had, a handful of journalists there from various media sources. Today, it was packed. There were so many people in there, and when it came out that the trial was going to be continued till next week, and in fact, there's going to be a hearing tomorrow at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. There's the government response to the motions regarding their handling of this evidence or withholding this evidence is due on Friday at noon. But when that came out, you could feel this shiver go through the courtroom, and there was this mass exodus of reporters heading for the door, I guess so everybody could be the first, to break the story. So the trial is tentatively set to begin Tuesday the 14th, 8:30 in the morning. There is a good possibility that another motion to dismiss is going to come up possibly before the end of this week. It's a big, big deal. Two other quick things that I want to mention. One was the fact that those who are hearing impaired are no longer being afforded devices within the courtroom so that they can hear what's going on. There's always at least 2 or 3 people with hearing impairment. For whatever reason, they're being told, well, those devices are busy, in other courtrooms or whatever. But it was very sad to see people straining, trying to hear what was going on and unable to do so. The second thing, and this is a really big one, Ryan Bundy stood and made a motion that he and the other defendants should be reconsidered for pretrial release. And the judge agreed to have a hearing in which they will consider releasing these guys. Now, it may be to a halfway house, it may be with, ankle monitors or otherwise under supervision, but if you are a person who exercises your faith, pray that the appropriate hearts will be softened, and that these individuals may have a chance to enjoy their first taste of freedom in more than 600 days. That was a lot to cover. There's more coming, and we'll be back to tell you more as we continue our coverage of the trial.